Today's show is sponsored by Kyrios Consulting. That is Kyrios with a Y, Kyrios. Real estate investing can be intimidating. That's why you don't do it alone. Kyrios Consulting gets you from no real estate to your first rental property. My friend Steve did it right here in New Hampshire, and he wants to help other Christians do the same. Visit consultingbykyrios.com. Again, that's with a Y, consultingbykyrios.com. No more excuses. The world needs more Christians with passive income, not more passive Christians. Make it happen. The link is in the description. Well, all right, everybody. Just a short video today. I did record yesterday a longer video, part 3 of the James White review. And, I'm just checking it over, you know what I mean? I want to be careful with that kind of stuff because, like I said in the previous 2, I like James White, and so I don't want to be disrespectful, but there were certain aspects of that video that, they were just too much for a guy like me to not respond to. So, part 3, I got a little bit more pointed in my criticism, and so I just want to check it over just to be careful. Other thing that I wanted to just point out here is I'm actually recording a video tonight with 2 not PCA. No one in the PCA wants anything to do with me, but 2 CREC ministers that I very much like and appreciate, Reverend Grant Van Brimmer and I think it's Reverend Josh Waller. Yeah, Josh Waller. They both pastor churches in Florida. Or I'm sorry, one in Florida, one in Georgia. And we're going to record a video on the 5th commandment because that's something that's been on a lot of people's minds and people are thinking it through, especially as, guys like me are, criticizing elders in the church. And what we want to do is we want to, give you some application on how the 5th commandment applies. And, if you reference the boomers, are you breaking the 5th commandment? And I think that'll be an interesting conversation. I think I'm pretty much on the same page with both of those guys. That being said, I'm not really one to use the term boomers very much. I don't think, well, I'll save it for the video. But if you look at my Twitter feed, for example, like I referenced boomer twice. One of them was a reference to Boomer Bill, which is a villain in Mario. He's also known as Bonsai Bill. He has 2 names. It's either Bonsai Bill or Boomer Bill. And then once was a positive reference of my father being a boomer, but also being pretty based. In any case, but I wanted to talk to those guys because I really do trust them on that. And the 5th commandment, it's not a small deal. It's a big deal. And so applications that you can make from the 5th commandment are important. So be on the lookout for that. I'm going to post that on my Fight Laugh Feast podcast feed as well as YouTube, and it should be a good time. But, I gotta take these glasses off. Anyway, but today's video will be a brief one. This is something I saw yesterday shared by a few people from Pastor Aldo Leon. Pastor Aldo Leon. And he describes himself as a post-mill, establishmentarian, exclusive psalmody, a cappella, PCA pastor. Sounds pretty good on the surface. But actually, I had Aldo muted, and I don't exactly know why, although it definitely makes sense because I've done quite a bit of muting and even a little bit of blocking, though I say blocking for politicians and journalists for the most part, and also crazy women. But anyway, so I had him muted. So I'm not really sure exactly what the deal is. I think it may have had something to do with Doug Wilson derangement syndrome. I don't really know. It could be that. I'm not really sure. But I unmuted him and I saw his thread here, and this is really. This is really, it's really insane, is what it is. When I first read about, and I started to understand the faith and stuff like that, and I first read about the Pharisees and the Corbin law, for a little while after that, I wondered how is it that the Pharisees, because I knew the Pharisees understood the law of God very well, and they were very smart and they were intelligent and all these kinds of things. How is it that they could get that law so upside down? And I know people are just people, but it seemed like they all kind of did, and it seemed like a kind of an obvious one, right? And I think that's why we're presented that, is that they had gone so far that they were overturning this law of God in such an obvious way, but felt totally justified by it. Anyway, so for a long time I didn't understand that, but over time and you get experience, you see this kind of thing happen all the time, and it's not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. But I think Pastor Aldo Leon does that here, and it's very amazing that he could say the things that he says and feel totally justified. Here's how it started, and honestly, if I would have just saw this tweet, I wouldn't have agreed with it, but I also wouldn't have made a big deal of it. Like, here's what he started out saying. This was yesterday, or 2 days ago. Pastor Aldo Leon says, "If you would rather live next to a European Universalist than an Indian Reformed Baptist, you hate Christ, ... Now, I kind of see what he's getting at with this tweet. You know what I mean? And that's why I wouldn't have really felt the need to respond to it. I wouldn't have said it was insane and evil. I can see why someone would say it was insane and evil because of the last part of the sentence. If you would rather live with a European Universalist than an Indian Reformed Baptist, you hate Christ. I could see somebody saying this is wrong, but to want to live with next to a European Universalist rather than a Indian Reformed Baptist, I could see somebody saying, well, that's not right. That's not how we're supposed to do this. That's not properly ordered love, whatever. I would disagree with that, but I could see it, except for the part about you hating Christ. That doesn't make any sense to me, and that's what kind of makes this a little insane in and of itself. It's not as insane as it gets, though, so just buckle up for the insanity. But I think it's and I've said this, even since Woke Wars 1, when people would say, hey, everyone's racist, all the white people are racist because, they live in, majority white places and they don't want to live in places with, Puerto Ricans or black people or whatever. That proves that they're racist. And, or like they don't want to date black people or whatever. And I've said, if you go through my content, I've been very consistent on this. This is just the standard way people live. This is natural. People like to be around people that, their context, their experiences, their culture is similar. That's how it is. And so if you go to the lunch table and you're a white guy and you sit next to the other white guys just naturally, that's not a sin to be overcome. Now, it could, there could be a sin behind it, of course, but it's not. It's natural to want to be around people that you share a context with, that you have a lot in common with. This is why most black people marry another black person. This is why most Hispanic people marry another Hispanic. This is why when I went to a wedding in the Dominican Republic, and this is why I got along. Well, I'm not gonna say I got along better, but this is why I hung out with the Dominican side of that wedding. That was a Dominican marrying Italian, and I liked both families just fine. In fact, my friend was the Italian, but when it came time to like hanging out and the cocktail hour and various things like that, I was hanging out with the Dominicans. You know what I mean? Like that felt natural to me. That felt comfortable. I mean, in fact, I kept saying to people, this is just like being with my family. This is natural, and so I can see why Aldo would want to make this kind of a point. I don't agree with it, but it's not that insane, except for the end when he says you hate Christ if this is how you feel. Like obviously that's overkill, and he's clearly doing that. It's like sometimes you say things in a more intense way just to make a point. And so I would have when I first saw this tweet assumed he was doing that. He was just being what's that called when you oh my goodness. what's man? I gotta wake up. There's a way that you talk that kind of is overkill just to make a point. You don't really think it's actually that, but you're just trying to make a point. That's what I would have thought. But if that's what I would have thought, I would have been wrong, because this is about to get completely insane, and in my opinion, quite evil. Pastor Aldo is teaching evil here. All right, so let's scroll down here and get to the part that I wanted to address here. A lot of people responded to him, and some of them were better than others. But we get to this guy, Keys, right here. What Keys says is, am I wrong to prefer to live next to my non-Christian cousins? And so what he's asking is, am I wrong if I want to live next to my non-Christian cousins more than I would want to live next to an Indian Reformed Baptist? And Aldo responds, if you prefer to live next to an enemy of God than his children, then yes, you hate God. Now, this is okay. So this is very weird, but again, if I would have saw this one, I would have said, oh yeah, Pastor Aldo, he's wrong about this. Not that big a deal. Whatever. I kind of can see his point. I don't agree, but whatever. And then Keys goes in a little bit deeper, because he kind of is sensing, I think. I haven't talked to Keys, but I think he's kind of sensing that there's something really upside down going on here. And so he asks him a more direct question. And this one is one that has a very easy answer that everyone should be able to answer easily, because it's directly relatable to one of the 10 commandments. There's only 10 of them. And this one is directly relatable to them, at least with the other stuff, the European Universalist and the cousins that are unbelievers. At least, for those, I still think that there's scriptures that apply to those as well. But at least you can say, okay, well, he's wrong about this, but I can see why he's wrong, because you have to think about it a little deeper. You maybe have to make some certain applications and stuff like that. But then this one, it's not like a very complex issue. Some issues in the Bible are more complex than others, and this one is among the easiest possible issues in the Bible. There's really no other alternative to interpretation that is viable here. So what Keys asks him says, okay, do I hate God if I prefer to live next to my elderly widowed mother who's not a Christian? And I really think that Keys nailed it here, because he's giving Aldo a big out. He's giving him a big out. And honestly, I would have almost been embarrassed to type this if I was Keys, because he could have just said mother, but he went even further. He's offering, he's basically, how when you're playing baseball with people, maybe you're playing baseball with some friends or wiffle ball or softball, and you've got one friend who's really not that good, right? And so you're a pitcher, you're trying to strike out everybody, but then you get this one friend who he struck out twice before. You could tell that he doesn't really know how to swing and stuff like that, and to be nice, you offer him a much easier pitch. Instead of trying to throw him the curveball, you throw him just a nice lollipop, just so he can feel what it feels like to connect with the ball. Like you have sympathy for him. You know what I mean? I'm not saying all of you guys do that kind of thing, but that's essentially what Keys has done here. He's laid it on thick. I would have almost been embarrassed to type this, because he lays it on so thick. It's not just your mother who's an unbeliever, but it's also an elderly mother. But it's not even just an elderly mother. It's an elderly widowed mother. And so this is your mother who is in need, essentially. She's elderly. Elderly people tend to need help. And she's also widowed, so she doesn't have her husband there to help her. So this is a woman that if this is your mother, this is someone that you are required to take care of. You're required to take care of her. This is what the Corbin Law was all about. This is your duty to God, to take care of this woman. She doesn't have a husband because her husband died. She's elderly, so likely she's going to need assistance, with various things, going to the doctor, going to the pharmacy, going to the grocery store, depending on how elderly she is, she might need help going to the bathroom. Like there's a variety of things here. Keys laid it on thick. This is the equivalent of tossing a softball to someone who you see is struggling, but you want him to feel like he's part of the team. This was merciful for Keys to ask Pastor Aldo this. This was a mercy. He laid it on so thick. This is one that he's like, man, Pastor Aldo, he can knock this one out of the park. He can knock this one out of the park. He's putting all the qualifiers there. An elderly, widowed mother, my mother, who's not a Christian. Do I hate God if I prefer to live next to her? Think of everything that would come living next to her. You would be able to help her more. You'd be able to keep an eye on her. You'd be able to, be right next to her in case, something were to happen. Maybe there's a fire in the house. Maybe somebody breaks in. Maybe she falls and she can't get to the phone. She's fallen and she can't get up, but you go over there every day because you live right next to her, so you can check her out. She's not going to be on the floor very long. I prefer to live next to my elderly, widowed mother rather than a Reformed Baptist Indian. That's what I'd prefer. It's embarrassing. You've got to be able to knock this out of the park. That's why I say I would have been embarrassed to even type this, because I laid it on so thick, it'd be so obvious that I'm trying to give this guy some kind of an out. And Pastor Aldo, this is his response. Did he delete it? Wait. Yep, he didn't delete it. He says, correct. Why did Twitter do that? This wasn't the initial response, but this context doesn't help. But I'm just saying, like, his original response was this, correct. So what Aldo says in response to, do I hate God if I prefer to live next to my elderly, widowed mother who's not a Christian, as opposed to a Reformed Baptist Indian? And he says, that's correct. You hate God if you prefer to live next to your elderly, widowed mother who's not a Christian, as opposed to an Indian Reformed Baptist. I can't... What do you even say to that? What do you even say to that? It is absurdity at such a level that it's just like any response I would give would actually, like, it would not be strong enough. This is the worst possible answer. Correct. That's right. You hate God if you prefer to live next to your elderly, widowed mother who's not a Christian over a Reformed Baptist Indian who you're not related to. And it's like, we all get it. Like, well, we don't all get it, but we all understand that we have a connection, a spiritual connection to our Reformed Baptist Indian brother. And we wouldn't have that same spiritual connection with our elderly, widowed, unbelieving mother. But we do have a connection to our elderly, widowed mother, one that He gave to us, and we have a responsibility, a duty, a spiritual responsibility and duty that God puts upon us to that mother. And it's absolutely mind-boggling that Aldo typed this feeling completely justified, completely superior, and way more pure than all of those anti-immigrant bigots out there that I oppose. It is absolutely shocking. This is upside down morality. This might be the worst example of upside down morality I've commented on, because it's so obvious, it's so direct. The Bible has such important, like clear and important things to say about this exact attitude. At least when I was talking about Woke Wars 1, the original woke church and stuff like that, those things were upside down morality too, but a lot of those, there's a few steps to get to where you need to go. Some of them were clearer than others, but they were all pretty clear, but some of them, you needed to kind of make a few applications, you needed to make a few nuanced, arguments, whatever, to get to show how upside down things is. Like, for example, like I think like if you want to tear down, the statues of your fathers from 100 years ago because they might have owned slaves, I think that breaks the fifth commandment too. But I could understand why that would be harder to understand for somebody. I could see that. It takes a little application, takes a little thought, it takes a little mental energy to get to why that's so upside down, and it is upside down. But this is a direct, easy. Like, it is so in your face upside down that, like, it's hard to think of any Christian, much less a Christian pastor, thinking this way. But here we go. We've got one. This is upside down satanic morality. This is satanic morality. It's also, I don't believe that he believes this. I think this was him trying to appear more pure than the other people. This was him trying to appear superior. This is him trying to own the bigots out there. That's what I think this is. Because I think when it comes down to brass tacks, and he's got the option of living next to his elderly widowed mother or a Indian Reformed Baptist, he's going to make the right choice every single time, even if it's against what he says here, because it's obviously not correct. And I think people in his church who are hearing this nonsense from their pastor, they're going to hear it, and even if they believe him, they're not going to do it because it goes against absolutely everything that they understand and believe through the scriptures, but also through nature. It goes against everything. Every fiber of their being would say, don't obey this command. So even if they think they're sinning, because they might be made to think that they're sinning in doing this, they're still going to do it. They're going to say, man, like, Pastor Aldo said this, that I'm sinning if I do this. I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. God forgive me. That's what they're going to do. So I don't believe him. Just like I don't believe, John Piper, that he wouldn't defend his wife with violence. I don't believe him. You know what I mean? That's just him trying to sound superior. That's just him trying to sound more pure than you. That's just him trying to justify his insane beliefs. Maybe he would, though. Maybe he would. Maybe Pastor Aldo would do something like this or teach this and really insist and maybe excommunicate someone for not doing this or feeling the opposite way. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he would. And if so, that's really sad because the Bible also says that this exact kind of behavior makes somebody worse than an unbeliever. You don't take care of your own, you're worse than an unbeliever. It's really just that simple. In any case, hope you found this video helpful. God bless.
Mi amor por